From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars pop culture and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
And I am Ken Napzok. I have lived some life in the last 12 hours, so me and my smoky voice are here.
I have lived a life that has not affected my voice as much, so maybe I can go high and Ken can go low. Not emotionally, but with our pitch. Who knows? Anyway, we're going to be discussing some breaking news from a long time ago, as well as taking a question from a great patron on Patreon. But we want to let you know, as always, that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. You can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week, we are continuing to recommend The Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. Are you watching The Acolyte and enjoying it and going, but I feel bad that the Jedi seem like they're struggling, and you want to just spend some quality time with Jedi doing pretty damn good? You can check out The Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. And if you want a lot more Jedi thoughts, hey, wait until the end of this episode where we have a Jedi question or a lot of in-depth discussion as we continue to watch, analyze, and enjoy The Acolyte. That is it. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. One more time, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audio book. Ken, we have some asks too.
Some asks and some gratitude to pass back out, I guess. We would love for you to check out what we're doing here on YouTube. Some of you watching right now, some of you watching me nod along to Joseph's wonderful Audible read because I don't know what to do with my face. Well, good information time. We are looking to get to 10,000 subs on YouTube. It would really help the channel. The Acolyte coverage is helping us do that. In fact, we're so thankful that a lot of you have jumped on. We recently crossed 9,200 range. Yeah, right? Didn't get my updated number this morning, but we're growing, and we'd love for you to help us continue to grow in that arena. So sub, hit the notification bell, tell your friends about us. It's been a lot of fun on YouTube. And a big awooga. We've got another live stream. We just had a great one this past Friday, at least at the time of this recording. We took calls from our Patreon supporters. It's been a lot of fun to hear, not just read, but hear from our listeners. And we're going to continue the live stream fun on Friday, July 12th at 2 p.m. Pacific. We are going to kind of see what we think the final episode of The Acolyte will reveal. It's going to be a lot of fun. Join us there, and it's all on our YouTube channel.
That is right. Very good. Very soft whiskey voice and delivery. Bordering on ASMR. Join us for live stream. So we've also been shooting for the specific goal of 10,000, which I love bringing up because Ken and I's favorite word, I think, together between us is probably hubris. Are we going to make it to 10,000 subscribers by the time The Acolyte is done? Probably not. But by pushing for that big goal, we've got a lot farther than I thought we actually would by now. The interest in The Acolyte and people really enjoying the news shows and so many people commenting. We grew about 100 subscribers this week, Ken. So the question is, can we grow 800 in 3 weeks to get to 10,000? So go along with us on the journey. Cheer us if we succeed, and be there to catch us if we get to the end of The Acolyte. We have not made it to 10,000 subscribers, and we look underneath us like Wile E. Coyote, and we fall into your arms, and we'll get to 10,000 eventually. Anyway, love having fun with these goals.
No, it's been a lot of fun. We've been ForceCenter's been around for 10 years now, 10 seasons. In 2025 will be our 10th actual year. It's a long time, but only leaning into YouTube as a ForceCenter entity really in this last year or so. It's been a lot of fun. You, me, and Jennifer spent a lot of time on YouTube over the last 10, 12 years, but it's been fun to see our growth here. And it's not only just, hey, wow, that's great, thanks for joining us. Like, YouTube's hard these days. It's not easy to just suddenly burst out with growth, and it's been wonderful. And we thank everybody.
Yeah, but it's been really great to connect with new audiences because it's basically a new platform for us to be all faces all the time. So thank you, everybody who has jumped on. With that, let's get into Star Wars life adventures. If you haven't been following along, we've been teasing the mystery of Ken's voice, but I'm sure Ken will share in his life adventures what happened.
Yeah, I had a great show last night at Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank, which is a local club here that Matt regularly, but they gave me the opportunity to headline a show and hopefully more, and putting together a lineup of comics and we sold the show out, and it was a lot of fun. But for me, started doing stand-up comedy in 2003. It sounds like a joke, but I've quit like 5 or 6 times. I just struggled with it. I couldn't find my voice, literally and figuratively, apparently. But really kind of nailing who I want to be on stage over the last year, even the last 6 months. It was a great opportunity, and just I don't know, just a lesson in maybe don't give up as easily as I have over the years, and also have that patience to discover who you are, and trying to relate it to Star Wars, but you can learn from failures. You can grow, and who you become at one point is not who you have to end up in. That's not like you don't just turn 12 and figure it out, and you keep learning. And much like Luke on an island, there's been a few times that people have tried to hand me a microphone, and I've said, "Get out of here," tossed it, and it's been a lot of fun. So it was a great time. It was interesting hanging out with everyone after the show. There's this. It was this weird ping pong effect of, oh my God, are you watching The Acolyte? It's the greatest thing ever. I gave up after 1 episode. What's The Acolyte? Like, it was just all over. So it was a lot of fun to talk Star Wars on different levels last night.
Yeah, no, and to me, it is so important. I love getting to be in the bubble and talking to so many people. Like we had our live stream, and we talked to people who are just like all in, and they love Star Wars, and they know so much in that. But it's always important to step back and realize there's some people like, I think the biggest thing going on in Star Wars right now is those Oreos, right? And like, no, there's a quite big Star Wars thing going on, even bigger than the Oreos. Amazing. But all those perspectives are important. They all add up to what Star Wars is. Even the people who have just like, I didn't even know there was a television show. That's they're a part of the community too.
It's pretty crazy. And like I said, these aren't folks who are like what's a Star Wars? These are folks like, oh, have they done anything after the movies? Like it's fun. It's fun in a weird way to have those kind of discoveries. You're right, getting outside that Star Wars bubble. But then you get to kind of be in it with someone who's like, oh my God, this is everything I wanted. And trying to talk to other people who are like, I just couldn't get past the first episode. Like, all right, try. Yeah. I want you to try.
Yeah. I think that in some ways that was my biggest Star Wars adventure. You and I recorded the Rise of Skywalker commentary. We had that Patreon goal to unlock it. So it's up for patrons now if you haven't seen. And if anybody, Patreon doesn't work for you, but you'd like to watch the commentary, it's available as a one-time purchase on our Patreon shop. You just go to patreon.com/ForceCenter and look at the shop tab. But I bring it up because, you talking about sort of persevering, quitting, coming back, that whole scene with Rey, one of the many literal rises of Skywalker and Rise of Skywalker, where they're just all convincing her of like, yeah, this is really hard, but you got it. You got this. Get up, keep going. I think that has been on my mind because I think a lot of things that are worth doing, and a lot of things that we really want to do in life are, you need Yoda in your head going, alone, never have you been, and a bunch of Jedi going, rise, rise, rise. And that's basically what I've been doing for the last several weeks, and will continue to do as I try to make this feature film happen, because it's just a lot of work. Everything is a money, time, asking for favors, battle, being out on a million thin branches at the same time. So that's really what I've been doing. In Star Wars has really mostly just been there kind of helping me out. I found a Stormtrooper action figure I wanted. That was very nice. And the other real Star Wars adventure this week is, every Star Wars show that comes out is going to have debates. This last week with episode 5 of Acolyte, it just felt like some of the voices that legitimately don't like it, some of the voices that want to bring it down because they don't like the people involved in the show having a voice, legitimate dislike, agenda-based dislike, all that seemed to quiet down. And I just kind of felt like, I think I just spent a week celebrating with Star Wars with other people who mostly really liked that episode of Acolyte. And like, that was a nice feeling to be in, of like, hey, wait, almost all of the Star Wars discussion and thought and reading I've done this week has been about people who really enjoyed that episode and can't wait to see what's next. And I really want to celebrate when that happens. This was a good week for me in Star Wars. Not that there aren't horrible things out there, not that people don't dislike it, but in my world, the volume of positivity was really strong. And I want to acknowledge and celebrate that.
Oh, that's great. And I've seen some people on social media that you and I know who are publicly like, I don't like it, but you know what you all do? So I'm going to stick with it. And that
Hmm.
works. And even last night, one of the conversations they had was someone was like, I didn't really like the first episode. And then I was like, stick through it. And they're like, but I hear this last week was good. And that does matter.
Hmm.
That you're looking around and going, oh, what am I missing? What am I, I want to get on this excitement train. That's part of the fun of having those conversations.
Exactly. And I think the good times can keep rolling as we keep talking, because we're going to talk mostly about a film that, for the most part, I always describe it as the safest one to bring up at a party because most people seem to like the Star Wars film Rogue One. And we have got some news, I say with a question mark, a slip from a director that has become news. Anyway, it's exciting because it's about Andor season 2 and connects to the film that's safe to bring up at a party, Rogue One. So, the director of the final 3 episodes of Andor season 2, Alonso Ruiz Palacios, was speaking to the playlist about his upcoming film La Cocina and was asked about Andor season 2, where he seemed to accidentally reveal that the great Ben Mendelsohn would be returning as Orson Krennic. He said directing episodes of the series was a treat, especially directing heavyweight actors like, quote, Stellan Skarsgård, Forrest Whitaker, and Ben Mendelsohn. I've been focusing on the Ben Mendelsohn slip, but now we know that Luthen Rail probably makes it to the end
Just
of
like,
the season.
oh.
He's like, Suppose the other joke is there's no confirmation that Ben Mendelsohn is playing Orson Krennic, so maybe he's playing his cousin Borson Krennic or something. Uh, Probably Orson Krennic.
Who's a chef at a restaurant called the Space Bear. It's all good.
Or maybe he rips the mask off and he's Ben Luthen Rail all along. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, so we're going to talk Krennic aplenty. We're big fans of that character around here.
Mm.
But I want to start by just talking about the information flow. How do you feel about the way this info comes out? It seems like a well-intentioned slip from a director that then people like us pick up and run with.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a giant sign of the times, right? That I think we cannot put anything back into the bottle or into the box, and I think I look at it sometimes case by case basis. I'm really excited about this. I feel sorry for this director if he got himself in any kind of trouble. And I don't know what is that trouble? An email from Bob Iger? Hey, watch yourself. I don't know. It could be like that, but it's the times, and we've seen it. There is we saw a lot of great clips last week of Manny Jacinto, on the press tour prior to the start of Acolyte, of him going, I've never touched a lightsaber. I don't know what that is, and that's what I would expect and what I want. But then you have stuff like this, and this makes me think of some of the hubbub around Matt Smith, who was announced being part of Rise of Skywalker, and then kind of said no, and then some people got really upset when they accused him of lying, and that was bizarre. I thought kind of engagement farming rage, but all these performers and actors, they're in a tough spot. Even I have a friend who just posted something about, and it wasn't a spoiler or anything. I think the information was out there, but they posted titles for the upcoming season of Star Trek Prodigy because they worked on it, and I wanted to write them and be like, just be careful. Like that's out. I don't think you're sharing anything you shouldn't, but you could become a news source, and you might not want that. And it's just where we're at. And I don't have a negative or positive. It is what it is, and it's sometimes frustrating and sometimes fun. Today's kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, this one seems clear that it was a slip, and everybody who's been reporting it going, I think this director slipped, but it was real exciting, so we're going to talk about it, and that's the same, thing. I feel like I hope doesn't get in too much trouble. I hope Bob Iger doesn't call him in the office and give him a demerit. He already directed the episode, so he's good there. But more than anything, it's just like, the world evolves, things change. But I do feel bad for directors, writers, actors who their job is being creative, directing, writing, and acting. And it used to be kind of the rare creative who made the choice to be like a carnival barker. Like Alfred Hitchcock chose to be in front of the camera too and be presentational about his work, And now I just kind of feel like that's not a choice for creatives. It's a part of the gig. particularly a part of a gig of being involved in a big franchise now. I think kind of gone are the days where it's like, I'm just an actor. And then, it's even actors are like we saw with the SAG-AFTRA strikes of movies being delayed because we didn't have actors out on red carpets promoting them. It's
Right.
so a part of the job in the world now of being a professional writer, actor, director, costume designer, to also be a publicist every second of the day and watching what you say and what you don't say.
Yeah, and a different conversation a little bit here, tangent on the side, but it's like I remember reading a great series of posts from like an author being like, it used to be you could just write your book. And there was always promotion, always got to take care of stuff. But now it's like you also then have to form your brand and personality online. And it's like, I can't do reels as a writer. It's just footage of me typing, like, or pasting. Like, what do you want? And it's just bands. You can't, unless you're got a great social media team or you're handling it yourself. Like, it's hard to get the word out. But this is how you get it out now. Comics as well. Hell, us. Thanks to Big Lou for clips. That's been helping to get the word out.
Yeah, hugely.
And for years, it's we should probably clip stuff out. God, I'm so busy. So that's a different conversation, but it goes to what I think you're saying of like it's all part of it. And I'm not surprised if a director's like, oh my God, I had a lot of fun directing Ben Mendelsohn. Oh God, I shouldn't have said that. Like, you just want to talk about your art.
Every job is 7 other jobs is the world that we're living in. And I think it is meaningful that this was yet again a situation where the creator was there to talk about the project that's out now, or they're trying to raise money for now, or they're trying to raise awareness for now. And then there's always but if you're involved in the big franchise, that one's coming too. So that's it's one thing if you're like, I'm going out to answer questions about Star Wars. Here we go. Yeah. It's not like, I've got this film that means a lot to me and then somebody's going to sneak in a Star Wars. Yep. Being ready for that. So this news also comes that Ben Mendelsohn is allegedly back. Comes after it was shot down by Ben Mendelsohn. Speaking to the Italian publication Bad Taste in February of 2024, Ben Mendelsohn said, as for being contacted by Lucasfilm for a new project, I can tell you that no, I have not been approached for something like this. And yes, it'd be great to see Krennic again somewhere, but for now, everything stops here. But as far as I'm concerned, I'd be very willing to explore it further and significantly in that world. I never expected to play a character like that, but then again, I never expected to become an actor either. For me, they are all wonderful things. So, how do you feel about this? Do you think Ben Mendelsohn was straight up lying? and if so, is that just we've talked about this, we've joked about this, but is that just a part of an actor's job now to just have to straight up lie? No comment doesn't work anymore.
I would think no comment doesn't work, right? That has always been a phrase with a double meaning, where no one's taken it as no, right? It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Pleading the fifth never means to me that you're innocent. It just means you're like, well, I'm not gonna. But I do. Yeah, he was so. I remember this came out, and I actually read it and shrugged it, like, or my shoulders sunk at home, like. Oh, I really wanted him to see, like, why wouldn't he be back? This is perfect. We're leading up to Rogue One. This is the time. I believed him. He just seems like one of those actors. He seems like one of those guys that I think I've built up that he's a little more stern and stoic and mean than he actually is. Like, he's got that energy, where it's just like, because all the characters he plays, the way, like, I bet he's super intense and doesn't take no guff. And maybe, but he seems by all accounts to be a really good dude. And some of the press for there was a Secret Wars with Emilia Clarke. They just were great together, and watching them in the press. So it seems like I've got to give him more credit for being just a normal, good dude here. So all that to say, I believed him. Him. I don't believe him anymore. I don't believe him anymore.
Secret Invasion, just so people don't think we're breaking secret news about Ben Mendelsohn being in the upcoming project, Secret Wars. Correct. That's really not on you, Ken, to memorize. Which Marvel secret is this? Is this a secret armor? Secret shield? Which secret is this? Yeah, I mean, it is funny that no comment has become yes. I kind of feel like I want actors who I totally auditioned for that role in Fantastic Four and I didn't get it. And when somebody asks them, go, no comment. And then just to make no comment actually work again. Like the fact that no comment has become yes. The fact
Hmm.
that, in the build up to the big Spider-Man movie, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire just had to lie. They couldn't say no
Yeah.
comment because everybody would take that as yes.
Yeah.
I'll die on this hill. We should reclaim no comment
I like that.
as being ambiguous.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and it isn't that high stakes. But there's a part of me that also like, hey, there's a lot of really important ways that truth is under assault.
Hmm.
Do we need to add to that it's a part of actors' job not to play a character, but to straight up lie to the press
Yeah.
constantly? Do we need that to add that to the assault on truth pile? Is that important to us as a society?
Yeah. Like this is just I'm just talking about this as it relates to like movie and TV news. To be clear,
Yeah.
but like there's also this game now. Like you said, oh, you're here to promote your film La Cocina. I heard you did a Star Wars. I'm gonna. There's always jokes, and we have friends in the business that have to do it. I'm
Mhm.
not criticizing anyone, but there's always
Yeah.
that. Hey, I have to ask you. But then you have a lot of folks who that's their goal is to get a little scoop, to dig in, and it's a game. And look, it always. But back in the day, it was Army Archer who probably knew the answers, but was working the phones and was and would I don't want to say protect anyone, but like just it was played differently. Where now it's like you get this scoop, you get Ben Mendelsohn to slip up. You've got your engagement, you've got your clicks, you got your views. It's the name of the game. I'm not even pointing fingers and
No,
tisking. It's just the way it is.
yeah, absolutely. I will also say that for me, depending on the entire context, you know, maybe he shot stuff and didn't realize it was Andor season 2 or something like that. I will put that. I don't think that's likely, but there is that
Yeah.
like famous Gwyneth Paltrow. I wasn't in that movie because she's like,
Oh,
come in and shoot a Marvel thing. Like,
yeah.
oh, I didn't know that was for that. Like maybe, probably not, but
Yep. There was a friend of a friend of a friend who told us, "Oh, I'm in Mando season 1." They weren't. They were in Mando season 2. They didn't. They were like, "Oh, wait, sorry, I got it wrong. I don't know which one I did." It happens.
all right. Well, enough talk about lies and slips. Let's talk about Krennic.
Mm.
Speaking of lies and slipping up, that's Krennic himself. So, Ken, how do you feel about Krennic returning in Andor season 2? How do you see him fitting into the story?
This is perfection. This has to be. Right? Like this is like remember leading up to even well before the Kenobi series was announced. It was I think the leading point of your campaign to make it was like you have the perfect actor at the perfect time to do this. We
Mm,
still have Ben Mendelsohn in the Rogue One age range with digital technology. I guess that doesn't matter, but he's Krennic, and this story leads directly to the first shot of Rogue One or whatever Gilroy has said time and time again. Of course he'd be there, and then the excitement of what we already saw with Partagaz and all those folks like Thesis, please. He and Mendelsohn in a scene. Oh, Anton Lesser, dear
mm.
God, I'm bubbling and bursting out with excitement. That's why I want this to be true because it's perfection, and the character belongs there.
Yeah, no, I really agree. I think when Andor was announced, and
Correct.
it was and it was pitched as a spy thriller, and I think it is, and maybe this next
Hmm.
season will become even more that as it's discrete missions.
Hmm.
I never realized how much that first season would focus on the Imperial story, and I think
Yes.
since the first season was also so much the story of Cyril Karn and Dedra and
Hmm.
Partagaz,
Hmm.
it really expands the palette of Andor to continue telling this Imperial story. Because I think before I was thinking of it from the frame of like, well, would
Hmm.
Cassian have encountered him? Why would I would love to see Ben Mendelsohn, but what how does Krennic fit into the story? In the first
Hmm.
season, to me, answers because it's the Imperial side of the story as well, and
Hmm.
that makes me really excited to see him. It makes me
Hmm.
excited to not just see him. I love his brief appearances in Bad Batch, in
Yeah.
kind of position him where he needs to be in canon and all that. But
Hmm. Hmm.
Andor has been so interested in getting under the hood, those of what motivates people, what makes them tick, and
Hmm.
Dedra Meero in particular, where they did that great make us root for her, make us feel sorry for her, and then make us feel complicit when she was suddenly doing incredibly awful, horrible
Hmm.
things. Um,
Hmm.
that it really excites me to see like how much could we get under the hood of Krennic and see what really makes him tick. I think
Hmm.
that Rogue One did a good job with that. I think the Catalyst book did a good job with that. And I think what makes him unique is he's got a real pathetic need for glory to,
Hmm.
he wants to do a good job and get a promotion and have a nicer car and have all of his neighbors know that he has, a nicer car kind of vibe to me, that
Yeah.
he has a need for glory, to be seen, to be valued. To me, he's like a more successful version of Cyril. There's just that desperate need to be seen
Yes.
and to be valued. So that
Hmm.
makes me really curious to see, like, is his character going to intersect with Cyril? Or
Yeah.
are Dedra and Cyril going to be ascendant in the Empire, and it's Krennic
Mm.
who crushes them?
Mm.
Are we going to end up? We'll talk more if Galen could possibly show up, but I also get the vibe that, like, Krennic just doesn't just need Galen to do the job. That if possible, he'd still like to be liked by
Hmm.
Galen. Like, I'm
Hmm.
imagining some Andor season 1, like, getting deep
Hmm.
under the hood of, like, Galen's there and he's working, he's doing what he needs to do, and Krennic is still trying to get him to, like, go out to dinner with him and enjoy it because Krennic
Yeah.
needs to be liked.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that it's not quite that Sith makes you lonely type of concept we've been talking over at Acolyte, but it's that, yeah, in the climb to the top, you find yourself alone on these ladders, and it's like, and it can never be trusted. Like if you're hanging around with Krennic, like you're like, he doesn't really like me. He's just trying to get to that next rung. But at the same
Hmm.
time, Krennic's like, let's get a beer, man. Let's go to the Outlander Club. Let's get a beer, man. Let's scheme. That Deidre Mera, I don't like her. Let's scheme. Like, yeah, I can totally see, but in that Krennic controlled way, that
Hmm.
Mendelsohn played way.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also that thought of just, like, I'm getting excited about, like, kind of what kind of things might we learn about the character? How can we go even deeper? But
Hmm.
there's also just, like, the plot thoughts that his story would be very Death Star tied, and we got, those kind of previous storytelling restrictions, so that, only so many people can know about the Death Star based on Rogue One. We know how the information got out. It's the brave
Hmm.
choice of that Galen and Bodhi Rook made that pulled the string. What kind of Death Star storytelling are you wanting from Krennic in Andor season 2?
I want that it's close to being done. We know a
Hmm.
first test is still a little bit out here, but again, we're racing up really close to the movie. But his push for credit, his push for this is the thing, this is my achievement, that energy,
Hmm.
and the anxiety of it getting so close, the anxiety of who is there to take it away from me, which might, some of the stuff you're talking about, like the DiGiamiro path ends with a character like him who
Hmm.
wants to push for it, who is also, we'll talk about who we might think will show up, but like the race against Tarkin, the race to
Hmm.
just get this done, regardless of the rising rebellion. I don't, Krennic only cares, to me, he cares about that in the sense of targets. Great, let's do this. This is why we're doing it. But it's mine. It's mine. And that energy of you stand on, my achievement. I want
Hmm.
that to be bursted at the seams in a very anxious and perhaps aggressive and calculating or miscalculated manner.
Hmm. Yeah, it would be interesting to see a story where he not only defends his ownership of the Death Star project, but maybe he successfully squashes
Hmm.
information getting out, and, leading him to his
Yeah.
hubris that he can keep it all under control.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so in that same interview, Ben Mendelsohn shared his opinion on what's there is to explore with Krennic. He says, "I think Krennic has a tremendous amount of things left to give to the audience. What we need to understand about a character like Krennic is that if he had had the chance, he would have tried to take over the entire game. And
Mm.
it seems to me that this aspect has not yet been explored sufficiently." So,
he, he said, "No, I'm not in it." And then this is a conversation he and Tony Gilroy had. This is like, it's great. This is great.
I did not eat that cheeseburger, but it would have tasted very good with a mustard Dijon. I'm just saying. Yeah. Uh, so yeah, all the speculating we just did,
Yeah.
maybe Ben Mendelsohn just told us exactly how Krennic is being explored, of
Yeah.
his game to take it all over. So what do you
Hmm.
think the Empire under Krennic would look like? What would it be? What it would be like if he had maintained control of the Death Star?
This is going to sound bad. I think I'm flying on a high wire act here. Okay, bear with me. without the focused energy of a Tarkin reporting directly to the Emperor, it's even more dangerous chaos. That says a lot because I'm not a fan of Palpatine and what he does. We like the character, but I want to be clear. I'm not rooting for. Yeah, it's best when you have one evil leader that everyone funnels up to easily. But if Krennic takes over, if Tarkin doesn't get it, I think there's so it's almost Sith-like in the way of like Krennic fights to the top, gets his power, and then other people are trying to take it because it's just office politics at its worst. That's why I've always loved the story of Krennic, this middle manager who just wants more power, and is brought down by his own creation, who's brought down by his own hubris again, and that he, like the Empire, he's trying to hold on as hard as he can, and makes these horrendous evil mistakes, wiping out the science team and all that kind of stuff, and even just thinking that you can power your way over Galen Erso. That I at the end of the day, I don't think I've ever had a huge problem with Galen's work being that little weakness the rebels can highlight on. I've never had a big problem with it, but now as time goes on, I even like it even more. That Galen's like they won't even. Krennic won't even figure this out. Like they just can't figure this out, and that's part of it. And so I think if the Death Star, if he had control of the Death Star, I think it would have been bad for the galaxy. Of course, I think it would have been even more chaotic. I think it would have been someone else takes it over. I think it would have been a King of the Hill game. Everyone just keeps getting pushed off. Palpatine still being there, he steps into the end. But if Tarkin is neutralized in that sense, and again, I might be splitting hairs because the end result is probably the same. A lot of unneeded tragic death, but it just it'd be a great season of Rogue One or Star Wars: The Office with just everyone trying to fight for power.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think if he had managed to survive, or really not get pushed off of the Death Star, literally, if he'd held on to it, and he was not down on Scarif, he was the one going to Scarif to wipe out the information like Tarkin did. I think everything would play out in A New Hope the same up until that moment in the film where the Imperial does the whispered report of, "Sir, we've analyzed their attack and there is a weakness." Instead of Tarkin's moment of hubris, I think there'd be a very funny comic moment where Krennic looks down and just goes, "Galen, get me to my ship." And he would have evacuated immediately because as soon as that guy said, "We found a flaw," he would have been, "Damn it, Galen got me." If he had lived and not got that information, from Jyn right before his death. That kind of amuses me, that what if.
Right. Different kinds of hubris. I like it. We're talking about shades of hubris gray here, but I like Krennic being like, "I'm embarrassed. I've got to run. Let's do this again."
And I think Krennic's also a character who's fascinating to me because, Tarkin's gotten close enough to Vader and I think Palpatine that he knows that, like, yeah, I'm running a authoritarian government, but I know there's some space wizard crap going on. And I think Krennic obviously has interacted with Vader. He's been over to his house for an unpleasant visit. I'm sure he's like, yeah, there's some weird, but like, I don't think Krennic has any sense that like, oh, this isn't just an authoritarian government. An evil wizard is also designed this government to cause pain because the galaxy literally being in pain and constantly fear empowers him. Like that sort of like that side of it, I think he didn't know. So if Krennic somehow got in charge of the entire empire, if he somehow offed Palpatine, I think it would still be an awful authoritarian government. But I'd also feel like Krennic would just be like, why aren't people happy? Why aren't they celebrating Empire Day? It can't like he just wants to be in charge, Whereas with Palpatine, it is like, no, I want to cause constant misery and pain, on purpose. And Krennic just wants to glorify himself.
You're speaking the truth here. I think Krennic would look around and be like, "What? Why are people having fun? Are you not enjoying this? This is great. This is great." Yeah.
Look, free candy for Empire Day. What's the problem?
Deploy the party garrison. Yeah. Good.
Are we blind? Put out the hors d'oeuvres. Such a fun character. Can't wait to spend more quality time with him as he tries to take over the entire empire. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk about another quote about upcoming Andor Season 2 and get into that great question back in a moment. And we have returned. We've talked a lot about the dark side of Andor Season 2 with the rise of Krennic, but there is some suspicion and some hope and desire that other characters related to Rogue One will be appearing. Diego Luna spoke about multiple Rogue One characters returning. He was quoted here from an appearance at the Ace Superhero Comic Con, and he said, I can tell you Rogue One is coming. So there will be characters there that you will recognize. There will be cool stuff for those who love Rogue One. This season is going to be very special. And it's going to be fascinating to go straight to Rogue One after watching this second season, because you will see Rogue One from a different perspective. I promise you that. I can tell you one thing. Tony Gilroy is a fantastic writer, and he created amazing characters that we got to meet in Andor Season 1. It's going to be a very rich second season because all those stories matter today. It is a true ensemble piece. It got very complicated in Season 1, and everything has to get resolved. Every story matters. So that's clearly a not a press release quote, but a speaking off the cuff at a convention, covering multiple aspects of what to expect in Season 2. But the big takeaway that we're talking about is more characters from Rogue One. So who else are you hoping to see, Ken? K2SO seems pretty guaranteed, but who else? Do you want Andor Season 2 to kind of expand to being a full Rogue One prequel?
I do, and I've got to temper my expectations and maybe my excitement. That doesn't seem to be. I don't know. In my head, I'm like, I don't know. That I'd love to see a scene with Bodhi Rook. I'd love to see Mads Mikkelsen back. I'd love to see Senator Bail Organa. General Draven, all of them. Merrick. Absolutely want that. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Admiral Raddus, of course. I mean, dear God, we love Admiral Raddus here. All that makes sense. All that makes sense. Even Lyra, even a young Jen Erso, put it all on the table. But then I'm like, but that's not what season 1 of the show was necessarily about. I think it's funny. It's called Andor, as we've always talked about. But Diego Luna's highlighting what the truth is. Like, it's not just me; it's an entire picture. But then, so Ian McElhenney is General Jan Dodonna. I always felt him having 1 or 2 lines was like fine for the movie, but I wanted more with him. So then I get like, all right, I shouldn't get too excited. But then I am reminded, Tony Gilroy's pretty aware of the characters of Rogue One. Pretty much does love that movie because he, was a part of it. Obviously, saved it depending on who you talk to. And Melshi, be it in season 1, was one of those great this worked, and I want more of that. I want it to feel like that. But then you got the lower halls of the rebellion and the upper halls of a government where Mon Mothma is, and that opens up a world of possibilities. I think my final thought about why I'm trying to temper my excitement is I really wanted Sly Moore at that dinner party, and we didn't get that. So that's all.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, I would love to see that dinner party. It's so great. Yeah, and that will be interesting to see because I think for us, I know we both love Andor, but I think we both said that we would love even more Aliens, even more of the kind of the pulpy, weird side of Star Wars, because I think Star Wars can be as incredibly well written, well acted, full of depth and subtext like the first season of Andor was, and you can also have a bonkers alien. You can have a hey, Sly Moore is clearly coded as deeply evil. Asking to have the hors d'oeuvres passed and still be subtle and deep with their character, because I think that's what's beautiful about Star Wars, that tension between the most beautiful thing ever happened and the frog puppet said it is part of what's fun about Star Wars. And I think the team behind Andor is more than talented enough to put some of this depth and brilliance in the mouths of Star Wars weirdo creatures. All of which is to say, my entire life is now dedicated to Bistan watch for Andor season 2. Come on, Bistan.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Right. No, but I do think I think Bistan is an honest possibility, because I love what you're saying. That there's a lot that was established in Andor season 1. As Diego Luna says, it's an ensemble show. Right. We're going into season 2. We are following the story of Andor. We're also following the fate of Bix, of Mon Mothma and her entire family. What happens to Perrin and Lita? What happens
Yeah.
to Velsartha and Cinta Kaz? To B2
Mm-hmm.
Emo? To all of Ferrix, but the Time Grappler in particular. What is the fate of Ferrix? Is it
Yes.
get
Yes. Mm-hmm.
utterly invaded and the boot put down on it? Probably. So I feel like it's already an ensemble show. So bringing in some of the ensemble that we know from Rogue One makes a lot of sense. And the Melshi thing is really fascinating because if season 1 ends with Andor being kind of all in, so I imagine this 5-year period is those relationships getting deeper and deeper with the boots on the ground that he works with, like Melshi and like Bistan. Maybe one of the episodes is, hey, getting this recruit, Bistan, because that moment in Rogue One where Andor, in that group of people who volunteer to go with Jyn, stand in front of her of like, we've all done awful things in the name of freeing the galaxy. We can't live with ourselves unless we do the right thing and go to Scarif. Rogue One might feel different if, like, hey, we spent a lot of time with Lieutenant Cephala and Melshi and Bistan and that background guy that we don't even know the name of, and we saw the hell that they went through. Maybe that's one of the ways that he's saying Rogue One's going to change, because we're going to get to know those real background boots on the ground characters who stand there in front of Jyn and say, "We're with you."
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. I got to admit, even now as we're talking, I'm getting super excited. I'm creating moments that probably won't exist. Like Forrest Whitaker is saw moving his team to Scarif, moving them in there, and then you run into Baze Malbus, shared Amway. Like, what are you doing here? Who are you? Like, and I just don't think the show is so late. There's so many other things to get to, but because of the time jumps, there's a lot more possibilities. I was already excited. I was already excited for the season, but
Beezer Fortuna with the desiccated Leku.
Right. Databag Bro flashbacks. There's so many possibilities.
And I believe there's been talk about Tivik being involved, the person that saw House murder, and Tivik's got that great line that's very, very of Rogue One, obviously, because it's from Rogue One, but the kind of storytelling that the first season of Andor leaned into with that Saw's right, it's all falling apart. There are spies everywhere. That line feels like, really great Andor television show kind of storytelling of the idea that any amount of trust among this scattered rebellion is falling apart.
I love that you said that, because that's one of those lines. How many times over the years have you and I pulled Alec Guinness lines or beats where he doesn't even say a line and go, that's an episode, or that's a story. That's something. What you're describing right there is a perfect idea to like pull it out into, highlighting. I don't think this is a change in perspective. We've always gotten the story of the rebellion, but how just tenuous it all is. How it was all about to fall apart until Scarif, until the strike, until Radis runs off and puts that flipper down and says it's time to fight, and just how hard it was for the rebellion to actually come together. I definitely get that sense. We've got it. Even Rebels did that, the show Rebels, but season 1, but of Saw and his castle going, we have to move here because everyone's against us, like, and just creating that kind of panic because it's real, and actually the cost of what you're talking about, the cost of spies giving out information and who's caught and who's caught by the Imperials.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. My last hope is Ryu Chuchi in live action. They set her up in Bad Batch season 2 to be involved in Rebel formation, so that would be really cool to see her at a dinner party. With Mon Mothma and Bail Organa. So we already talked about this a little bit, but how do you think we'll see Rogue One differently because of Andor season 2? What are other thoughts on that?
I'm trying to think. The biggest thing, other than some stuff we just talked about, is I don't know if it's change in perspective, but just expanding our understanding of Andor, casting Andor himself, and some of the decisions and lessons he makes, and what that really means. I think it's clear in the movie, and this isn't a going back to fix something type of conversation, but to say, like, when he stands there before Jen and is like, I want to make this all worth something, or even on Edu and not shooting Galen Erso. That's him rejecting a lot of the things he had been taught and trained and learned to that point. And I'm not saying he's flat out rejecting the policies of Luthen Rail or moving past what Saw Gerrera's trying to do and accepting Mothma's way. In the bigger picture, I kind of think that's what's going on. But to understand that, and along the way, seeing those horrible things, that I think, when he shoots Tivik, it's one of those like, ooh, cool, gritty Star Wars, but that's one of many, and I want to feel that weight. I want to have that perspective now of it wasn't just a one character on one planet, and then he decides to make that decision. This has been 5 years of horrible, horrible things that now are not starting to feel right, especially because things maybe aren't working as best as they hoped or as best as they planned. So when he takes that rifle down and doesn't shoot Galen, that's big, and we know it's big. But you know what I mean? But like, to have that, I want to be able to feel the full scope and weight of that.
Yeah, no, I really agree. I think Cassian's story is clear in Rogue One. He's been asked to do immoral things and even follow a harder line within the rebellion, because that's not his official mission. The official mission given to him by Mon Mothma is bring Galen back. We want him to testify in front of the Senate. And then he gets pulled aside. It's like, actually, no, kill him.
Kill him, yeah.
And he makes this choice because of his relationship with Jyn, because I think he's listening to, his gut and all that. So he has a very complete story. So I don't feel like it's, now we're going to watch Rogue One and understand why he made the choices. It's perfectly clear to me. I think what's going to happen is that it's really just going to be richer. I think we'll feel it more in different ways. I think Cassian has a great arc, in a clear arc in Rogue One, but the film also is structured, in my opinion, to be Jyn's movie. Jyn is the main character. It is, her father, her loss of her mother, her relationship with Saw. So I wonder if just watching the movie will just play differently and feel differently, because it will still be Jyn's story, but the audience will have an even stronger emotional connection with Cassian. Like, the movie, in my opinion, is structured to be Jyn as the main character. But watching it, we might feel now almost like Cassian's the main character, because we spent more time with his journey. And I even get more out of Rogue One because I love Rebel Rising, the book that fills us in on a lot of Jyn Erso's adventures, and that enriches it. And coming to that film with both Rebel Rising and 2 seasons of Andor are just going to make it feel even richer.
I really agree with that. Yeah, Rebel Rising, a house favorite here for you and I, and. Yeah, we haven't even mentioned. I don't see Jyn Erso actually showing up. We're not going to see her get arrested or whatever that is. I don't know if we need that. And definitely, Felicity Jones isn't out there lying about anything on the press tour, as far as I know. We'll see, but it's all on the table for me at this point. You could be really excited, but I think that's bad speculation on my part. If
Jyn makes sense, great. But I also kind of feel like her story up to that point is, I don't want anything to do with this fight. And so far, this story of Andor has been focused on who are the participants in this fight between the rebellion and the Empire. And right now, Jyn is desperately trying not to be a participant.
Yep.
So So who knows? I think one great thing. It's not great. It's horribly depressing. But a beat in the film that I'm thinking about is Jyn and Cassian dying on the beach together, which was perfectly powerful when it came out in 2016. But just from season 1 of Andor, we've got a lot of beach time with Cassian that makes that moment more full of irony, more full of meaning. His false belief to his mother Marva that they could go somewhere warm and easy, and being arrested on a beach like that, surviving by being the only two who managed to swim away probably from Narkina 5, and he and Melshi on that same beach looking out, going, we got to get the word out. We got to fight this, that dying on the beach already has some different sort of rhythm and visual poetry to it. And I wonder if, like, every second of Cassian's screen time in Rogue One is going to have that same sort of added depth and dimension.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Looking forward to it. So we're going to move on to this question from our patron, Ronald White. And we put out these calls for questions, and we try to get to them, as quickly as we can. But sometimes they're, from a couple weeks back, as is this one. But it's still relevant to this moment in time. It is about the Acolyte. Ronald White says, "I love the philosophical questions the Acolyte is raising. I've rewatched both episodes twice because only 2 episodes were out, and I feel like it's stripping away the idea that Jedi can do no wrong. My question is, do you think the Jedi are illustrated as the villain? And if so, who will be the hero? I think Saul represents the best in the Jedi, and wonder if that will change when we realize skeletons are in his closet from the past. Your thoughts?" The idea that Saul has some skeletons in his closet has only become more crystal clear in the weeks of the Acolyte, and I know from our live stream this past Friday that many fans of the Acolyte are waiting with bated breath to see, oh no, how bad are the skeletons? Because they're feeling the same thing Ronald is, that Saul represents a really good Jedi who made a boo-boo, and how bad is the boo-boo? And what is that going to tell us about the Jedi? So, Ken, I want to start here, and then we'll dive into the bigger picture question. So, Ronald phrases it's stripping away the idea that the Jedi can do no wrong, and I do agree with that. But I feel like in the fandom in general that I get more the vibe that many people feel the Jedi can do no right, and that between the question, the criticism of them in the prequels, the portrait of a failed organization in the prequels, partially in the Clone Wars animated series, Luke's coming around to the Jedi mission in the end of The Last Jedi, but also having some legitimate criticisms, that I feel like a lot of our Star Wars storytelling has been stripping away the idea that Jedi can do no wrong. And I'm not criticizing Ronald's perspective or question. I think that's something I've been struggling with. Is what I want is some more storytelling that shows, yes, the Jedi make a ton of mistakes, but also they're the heroes and do many good things. So I wanted to start there. How do you feel about that perspective?
I think you just really nailed something right there. That the Jedi can do no right in the eyes of many fans right now, and perhaps for a long time. That's kind of where it is. As far as stripping someone away, I do agree with what he's saying, but I also agree with you that it's always been there. I mean, I'm even thinking of Kenobi saying, I lied a little bit. How many times does that come up, right? The perspective line is that. I'm even thinking of Kenobi and Yoda at the end of the little beaten empire of, well, we're screwed. No, there's another. We might have messed this one up, but we got another. Like, it's all there. We have talked about the third act of Last Jedi, sometimes, quite frankly, just being overlooked by all kinds of parties with their views on Last Jedi. Luke realizes, we can do right. We should analyze it. But I think this show has come at a weird time, a good time for this conversation of we should analyze them. And I do think, in general, what Ronald might be hinting at here or touching upon is, in general, in the history of pop culture the last 50 years, the Jedi are the heroes, right? It's Luke. So without a doubt, I think a lot of people, for the first time, because it's so highly concentrated, are going, oh, I'm seeing them in a new light for the first time.
Yes.
In my final, like, even in Ahsoka, in the flashback, there was a lot of conversation of finally, a lot of people didn't spend time in the Clone Wars animated world to see Ariana Greenblatt on screen as a young teenager in a war. People for the first time are like, whoa, never thought about that. That doesn't seem right. I think that's part of what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, so like I said, not criticizing Ronald's question or the way he phrased it. I just think I am feeling more the opposite, that the Jedi have been stripped in many fans' eyes as heroes for quite a while, and it's one of the I think the Acolyte is approaching it in a different way. So let's talk about that, because that's the heart of Ronald's question. Ronald asks, do you think that the Jedi are specifically illustrated as the villain? And if so, who will be the hero? Especially as it's gone on, I don't think Acolyte is interested in the simple labels of hero or villain. I feel like what the Acolyte is really doing is an idea that I think is present in a lot of Star Wars, but I think Acolyte's really refining it, is the idea that characters are defined by their choices. And clearly the Jedi have made mistakes, but I think the question that this show is going to be asking is, who among the Jedi can look at those mistakes, who can admit them, who advocates for change based on those mistakes, who makes an attempt to move past the mistakes and make better choices having learned from them. All that stuff about the Jedi, it is clear that they did something not great in different levels of not great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's much more of a not hero villain, but much more of kind of a human story of even the most well-intentioned people are going to make mistakes, and then the choice is, how do they respond to them? And I think with the hero or villain, I think we don't know exactly what the Coven was up to, and their actions are currently being disguised from us. I think the only villain that I've seen so far is the Stranger, Chimere, and even he will probably have some moments where you're like, I understand the trauma that you caused, but here's your actions. You were just going around the galaxy taunting and slaughtering people. So I think it's really about actions and how people respond to them. What are your thoughts on hero or villain in Acolyte?
I think you're nailing a lot of the things here about this being a series. We know it's about duality. We mention that every week because it's so present, and Leslie Headland and the entire team have talked about it. But in that duality comes what you're talking about: the choices, your actions. And that's how you should be judged. You're the chosen one. They called you the chosen one. What do you do with that? That's at play and always has been at play in Star Wars, right? Do you chop your father's hand off? Do you toss the lightsaber away? What choice do you make, right? So it's been present. You and I love, along with Jennifer, celebrating that for 10 years now. But this series is really just putting that on a platter. And in a wonderful, I even answered last night when I was talking about the show. I love Acolyte, but I love discussing it even more because it raises these questions. And I do not think, and again, you and I always do a wonderful job of making sure when we're talking about this, that the person who asked the question is not who we're getting frustrated with. But they are not, the Jedi are not the villains. And I was never seriously worried that this series would do that. That this show would do that, because I've always said, going back to 2020, love everything Leslie Headland has said about Star Wars when asked about it. And she understands it and understands what it's trying to do. But this is a show about the Sith, or from the Sith perspective, had us a little, because I think we anticipated, us and a lot of people, we're not wise sages, but we anticipated some of what you're talking about. The Jedi can do no right. You need to put that on a shirt, Joseph, because that's exactly what's going on. So I had my hackles up, like, oh, I'm ready to defend the Jedi. But we have to look at what their choices are in every situation. But to say it's from the Sith perspective is to look at someone who is in this galaxy coded as the heroes. In story, they're the shining knights with the weapons that go around in the robes and doing things. And you're going to have a lot of people looking at them in bad ways. And when they do make the bad choices, as will happen, this is about the perspective of the Sith looking at that and looking at it as justification for their actions. You broke it down wonderfully with Chimere going, one of my favorite things he said last week was, oh, I killed the kid, but you brought the kid. That's your fault. Nothing about what I did was my fault. And so that's the perspective. And we're just analyzing these choices that the Jedi are making. And they're right to be criticized. They're right to be analyzed. That's part of what's fun. But I still... I'm not even saying they're coded as heroes. I think they're coded as Jedi in this galaxy trying to do right.
Yeah. The duality thing, I think, I'm interested to see how strong of a statement Acolyte makes about being beware of the rigidity of duality. Because it feels like, we're invited to look at everything from a lens of duality because it's the Jedi and the Sith. It's the Jedi versus the witches. It's twins, and one seems to be drawn to the light and one seems to be drawn to the dark. But which one? Is there going to be a switch and all that stuff going on? But if you're watching kind of what's happening with Osha and May, it feels like they're children, they're young women, they're sisters who want all these various complex things, but they want family, they want belonging, they want to deal with their pain. But every incident that's happening with them, they're kind of being pushed to choose which are Jedi, yes. And then, they're both like, all we really care about is that my sister's alive and I kind of want to deal with that. And even then they're like, Osha, come and be a Jedi with us. May, you have to follow the teachings of this dark sider, kind of be a Sith, earn, they keep seeming to be like forces are trying to make them make rigid choices, rigid binary choices. And what they need and want is a much more complex, how do I make things right with my sibling? How I get past the loss of trauma with my family? They want human things, and everybody around them is wanting them to make these binary choices, which makes me feel like the show is ultimately going to be critical of making things too binary.
Absolutely. Which is fair, right? Fair.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me right now, up to this point, watch up to episode 5, right now, the main hero is Osha to me. And I know many fans think the stranger Chimera is going to break her and she's going to go to the dark side, and maybe. But right now, to me, she's extremely Ahsoka coded, where she is a character who walked away from the Jedi Order, and yet she is doing the best job following the teachings of the Jedi Order. She's not, some gray Jedi who said, I want to do things my own way. And neither is Ahsoka and neither is Qui-Gon, in my opinion. They're people who the Order's messing up, but we're sticking to the teachings, the true teachings of what it means to be a Jedi. So right now, Osha's coded as the hero to me based on her actions.
I really agree with that. I'm always up to entertain wonderful theories, and we got a little bit of switcheroo going on that's going to be fun to play out. We should point out at the time of this recording, we're 5 episodes in, so if you're watching this later and something's changed, that's why. But that scene with Jackie before all this, before they left, of the, the exact words fail me right now, but like Jackie kind of said, "Oh, look at you're a Jedi. I'm not a Jedi, but you're doing things like a Jedi." Yeah, I absolutely think you're right. It's absolutely coded like that.
Yeah, and she's the one making all the best choices in episode 5, in my opinion.
And sorry, finally, what I'm so excited for as of right now is taking that person and putting them directly in contact with the person who is on the darkest of the sides right now.
I'm so excited because I think the stranger is going to try to break her with. I think Indara, maybe Kalnaka, for sure Torben did something real bad, and I think Sol maybe did something kind of bad from an understandable perspective. Those are my guesses, and I think it's going to be about Osha having a good head on her shoulders and following Jedi principles, and the stranger trying to break her. And is he going to succeed? Or is she going to do what the show's been talking about of like deal with the past, put it behind you, find a way to move forward? So I'm excited about that. Final thought for me, just on the kind of the whole Jedi question. A thing I've been thinking about a lot is that I understand why people can be really down on the Jedi Order, because most of the storytelling we've had, particularly big on-screen storytelling like the prequel, has been about the Order becoming a rigid, dogmatic bureaucracy that is frightened to question itself, frightened to push back against the Senate, more concerned about political optics than following what's right, got itself tricked into a war. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to criticize the Jedi Order, but to me, the Jedi it's not just the Order. It is the all of the beliefs and the values of the Jedi that make me think the Jedi are the heroes. In a lot of the big victories of Jedi that we have seen in the grand Star Wars story are at times where the Order itself doesn't fully exist or function. But when I'm analyzing, are the Jedi the heroes of the galaxy and the heroes of the story, I'm thinking about Luke's great victory in Return of the Jedi, of throwing down the blade and helping to save his father. In the Kenobi series, Obi-Wan healing himself and returning to what it truly means in his mind to be a Jedi. Kanan sacrificing himself. Ezra sacrificing himself and being called by the Purgles and fighting the fight that he needs to do at the place he needs to do to defend Lothal. Luke's triumph in The Last Jedi, saying, yes, the Jedi need to exist and they need to see me as a hero so they'll be inspired. So I'll project a crate. Rey's great triumph in The Rise of Skywalker. These are all Jedi triumphs based on Jedi beliefs and principles and actions that happen at times where the Order isn't entirely functional. So I think sometimes, are we discussing the Order or are we discussing all Jedi and all Jedi beliefs? Because I think all of those characters learned their beliefs from the Jedi Order.
Yeah, and you go on Star Wars threads, and it's it's a mumbled jumbled mess of the views. But I understand it. We're in a time where this is something you want to look at in the real world. Look at who's there to protect you, and are they really doing that, and why, and everything. But I go back to the beginning. I go back to it's I know it's the hero's journey template, and I like it when we do that in different ways versus what we are now familiar with. But to me, Luke representing anyone looking for beyond themselves and wanting to get connected and getting connected to the story and a path forward on how to do that. A morality tale. You ever heard people say that about Star Wars? Mark Hamill in every interview for about 20 years. Well, it's a morality tale, and that's what it's about. And that it's right because it's George Lucas questioning the government that was around them, questioning the war they were in. Later on, as we've mentioned too many times, but questioning a directors guild, not saying we don't need unions to support and protect the workers, but it's not doing what's supposed to be. What's the true intentions and taking that forward? That's definitely all the way through. All the great examples you just gave, all through Star Wars. And it's not necessarily victories for the order, capital T, capital O. It's a victory for the ideas behind them. Constantly, time and time again.
Exactly. I've been saying that to myself on walks and in showers for a couple weeks. So thanks everybody for letting me get it out.
No, but if we want to get a little even more real, we always are real. We're always our authentic selves as Star Wars fans on ForceCenter. But a little more, it's been a little frustrating, and it's not it's not people out there who are, I know the Star Wars social media world's a little, it's always been shocking. It's always been bad, as we've talked about going back to 1980. But it's not just people on one side of the argument who are like Jedi are bad. It's rather reasoned friends of mine who are like F them Jedi. Like no, that's not what it's about. No, and it's just been a little frustrating at bars and restaurants talking about it. If I'm being honest.
I think for me, just like the stories that we know well, all those great triumphs of Luke and Obi-Wan and Kanan and Ezra and Rey. And all the Jedi and the High Republic publishing initiatives. The lesson of all those stories are, yes, the Jedi are heroes. Yes, the Jedi's mission is good. Yes, they should exist. And they make mistakes, and those mistakes should be questioned. And the Jedi triumph when they question those mistakes and move on from them and learn from them. But yeah, all of my justice for the Jedi is not to say that they don't make mistakes. It's that even heroes can make mistakes, and that's a large part of a lot of these triumphs, that even heroes can make mistakes, and then they move on from them. Anyway, all right. I think that is it for this great question from Ronald White. Thank you, Ronald, for this question, because I think you're just really digging into a lot of what is like most vitally at stake in the Acolyte and what has made all the ideas of it really interesting. And I so look forward to discussing these last 3 episodes. Any final thoughts from you, Ken?
No, great question, Ronald. Love discussing. I really do love discussing it. When I say it's frustrating, it's just because, like, I don't know, it's some really mean things are said about the Jedi, and I don't like it. But it's fun to discuss, and that's what I do love. The Acolyte is doing.
Yeah,
what I love about it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I think that leaves us down to social media plugs and waving goodbye.
Speaking of social media and the choppy waters of Star Wars Online, you can find us out there at ForceCenter Pod at most spots. We're on Facebook at ForceCenter Podcast, Instagram as well. You can also, as we said up top, subscribe and follow us here on YouTube. And you can get merch at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. As a podcast, we're pretty much anywhere podcasts are found. It's a changing landscape, so just search and find us. If we're not there, let us know. We can try to get onto a new service or app that we're not aware of right now. You can support us directly at patreon.com/ForceCenter. As Joseph said at top of the show, we do have our Rise of Skywalker commentary watch-along video is out there. It's available for all Patreon supporters, but if you just want to swing by our shop and get it as a one-time thing, do that. And while you're there, check out our 007 centers that are there as well, and that series will continue. Follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to kennapzok.com for more information. Updated shows. Seattle this next weekend. Little Rock, Arkansas coming up. San Francisco's on the docket, I think, as well. But more importantly, August 16th, I'm on a great variety show celebrating the birthday of Joseph Scrimshaw.
Yeah, very excited about it. And thanks for doing the show, Ken. Yeah, so that show is called Horror Years Old. It is celebrating a big birthday for me. Ken's going to be on it. Our friend Hal Lublin's going to be on it. A friend of the show, Audrey Kearns, is going to be on it as well. Lots of great people. My friend Laser performing as well. So a great group of people doing a fun comedy variety show about aging. And it is going to be Friday, August 16th, 7:30 p.m. at the Lyric Hyperion here in Los Angeles. But it is going to be beamed to the entire galaxy. There are live stream tickets available. So if you'd like to see a comedy show from some of your ForceCenter friends, you can watch it anywhere in the world. The link is on my website, josephscrimshaw.com, to all that information, and links on my website, josephscrimshaw.com, to all the other stuff I'm doing right now as well. That is it. The news has broken.